So from now or from pico and nanoseconds, we go more a bit in the direction of milliseconds, I guess.
Old junk.
So I hope this will, I'm sure you will enjoy this one. At least I will, I know.
You will? Okay.
Yes, I will very much so.
I do hope everybody will enjoy this. I have here some old junk to present. It's obsolete technology nobody is using today. Well, maybe not nobody, but just a few nerds like me. I bring it back to life. My name is Gianpaolo, and I'm the vintage collector. This is my story. So, let's start with a warm-up question. Maybe I should not ask about the oldest computer you still have in your possession, but maybe the oldest firewall, router, switch, whatever. But maybe, who can speak up? What's the oldest stuff you still have today in your possession? Yes, please.
I have a Commodore PDCBM 4016.
Okay, that's nice. That's around 1980-ish, 82-ish. Who else? Back there? SparkStation IPX. Early 90s, I think. Who else? Back there, Elias. Amiga 500, awesome. You had one? Mac SE. What else? Oh, there's Mac Plus. So there's a few stuff around. I see Thomas Ken also has something. Cisco AGS. Yeah, without microphone it's hard to hear up here. Cool, awesome. So there's a few old collectibles around, obviously. Nice. I'm not the only nerd out up here. So, when you're collecting old vintage gear, there is no right or wrong. It's highly individual what you're collecting. Some like PCs, some like to collect maybe something about Apples, others are after exotic systems or just a very specific single systems and just have, let's say, there's people who love to have, let's say, every iteration of Commodores, whatever. I mean, there have been many model series over the years. When it comes about my collection, I'm collecting again since around 6 years. I have roughly 100 machines at the time. I have good sample of PCs. I have a good sample of Apple systems, silicon graphic workstations in particular. I'm mostly into the mobile world, so I started really with portable, loggable machines, then going into more the handheld period and the ultra-mobile period that we saw in the 2000s, eventually culminating with the netbooks in the mid-2000s as well. And then around 2010, then it stops for me. I don't collect something that is newer, at the time at least, which is newer than 2010. There's a few exceptions, so it's not all about handhelds or portable machines. Let's jump back quickly to what I had collected in the past. Somebody mentioned about IPX from Sun Microsystems. I did have actually many systems from digital, from Sun, also silicon graphics, until I was fed up in roughly 2010. Then I sold off everything, which was pity. I shouldn't have done so. But, well, conditions were different then, and so, well, for a few years it wasn't really a big topic. I kept just 2 things. One is a not very special Compaq Armada. This is the first notebook that I bought myself with my first apprentice salary, so this is like an emotional thing. And I happen to have this actual 1988 Commodore C64C model series. That's the only stuff that I kept. Everything else was gone after 2010. So, my oldest machine, coming back to the warm-up questions. some of my oldest machines. We see here the Osborne one, that's one of the very first commercially available loggables of the time from 1981, still running CPM. Don't know if anyone out here still knows CPM. There's a few hands coming up, CPM. I actually didn't know it, I'm too young. At this time when this came out, I was 2 years old, so I just learned this afterwards. Then the granddaddy of all computers as we know them today, the IBM PC 5150. This is a particular story for its own. I will be coming back to that machine as well, as this cost also quite some, let's say, nerves to get it back up and running. But that's not the oldest that I have. It gets even older, and this is actually just one slide that I had inserted on Sunday and pushed an update to Simon. I just got these last week, literally. Last week on Thursday, I got these, a PET and also the CBM 8032. I totally have no idea on these machines. I expect them to be similar to the C64 in some ways, but I will need to learn here and have a steep learning curve, I'm pretty sure, because I just got the option to inherit that from a friend of mine who, so his godfather just passed away some time ago and had this still in his attic, and yeah, it was really, it would have been a pity to throw it away, and so I was really like, so yeah, get it. So now let's see what I can do about it. But that's still not the oldest one that I have. Here I have the Rockwell AIM65. This is more like a single board experimental style computer from 1976. I happened to inherit 3 complete and 1 spare mainboard unit from actually my neighbor that had passed away 2 years ago. And to this day, I didn't find the time yet to dig into these machines, because here as well, I think the learning curve will be even steeper as, yeah, well, the only thing that they share in common, even with the systems before, is the MOS 6502 CPU. But other than that, I know it has built-in BASIC, but yeah, I will need to dig in. But at least I have manual that thick. I got everything for these machines. But yeah, speaking about the MOS 6502, interestingly enough, many machines from the mid-70s had this CPU built in, and it is, at least in the CMOS variation, still available and produced today, which is astonishing, still made today. Where was it in? There was many systems, be Apple I, the Atari 800, Apple II, BBC Micro, some of which were more common here, some were not so common here. The Commodore series, of course, and yeah, the Famicom. Who knows Famicom? See a few hands rising up. So the majority doesn't know Famicom. Maybe you know this one, the NES. So NES, before it looked like the NES as we know, it looked like Famicom in the end of the day. That's Nintendo. I didn't know it as well when I started digging in, then I was surprised. But everything based on the same CPU, and then we got into even more stuff that is even older, although this is replica machines in my collection. So I have a PDP-11 that is driven by a Raspberry Pi, and I have an Altair 8800 replica that is powered by an Arduino. The reason for that I have the replicas, one is the size, especially for the PDP-11, because it's like this high. I don't know where to stow this. And the second argument to it is darn expensive to get these, especially PDP-11. And well, I wouldn't want to discuss that with my wife, actually, where to put that. Yeah. Someone actually already asked me today if I have my own museum, and in fact I have. Yes, I have a bomb shelter in my house, and it was stuffed with other junk, and eventually I had the idea to put my systems on display, so I revamped everything. You see as well here the walls being painted on orangish and greenish colors, so this is really the hint to the amber and green displays of the past. And well, yeah, my wife had a word to say. She said, If you're doing that, you have to clean up the attic and build shelves. So I was cleaning up the attic and was building shelves. That was the price that I paid. Yeah, good. Let's get more into reality. So when I get hold of systems, sometimes they're good, sometimes they have bad repairs. Like here, it may not look obvious, but I mean, yeah, who's fixing cables like that? It's maybe not the best way of doing it. And but it can be much worse than that, actually, because sometimes you find systems where there were previous inhabitants. There is, I think, remnants of pee and mice poop, or actually, I don't want to know. I cleaned it. I cleaned it. And yeah, you encounter things like that all the time. Luckily, not every time, and still, in the end of the day, it's really about fun stuff. Like I said, I built this Altair 8800 replica from a building kit, which was like a lot of soldering work. And even more fun stuff, I built this arcade table as well from an IKEA table, not an original idea by myself. I was really inspired by seeing that, but then I thought, yeah, well, I play these old games here and there as well. So this is what I furnished for the man cave. Oh, something happened. Now, why is it dark? Good question. Sometimes you need drastic measures. I had this machine, the IBM PC that I mentioned, had it running, left for going for lunch, or actually for dinner. And when I came back, the room was all dark. And why is that? Because maybe you see it on one of these images. There is this goo around the capacitors. It leaked out, and obviously there was then also a power outage because it blew the fuse. And this was not the first and will definitely not be the last time that this happened. And well, as you can see, I had to tear it down and replace all the capacitors to bring the monitor back. And this is really, of everything that I see most of the time, the usual suspect is dead capacitors. Here as well, I have from a Macintosh SE mainboard that I had to tear down. There was a lot of capacitor leakage. Luckily, no defects on the traces. I had to submerge it in alcohol, clean it, recap it, but then eventually it worked again, which was really nice. Yeah, and sometimes you're setting up like this. You want to see if it works, and something like that happens. And yeah, that was a tantalum capacitor that blew around my ears, and I was really like, whoa, good. Recapping it again. And it works again. And yeah, sometimes people ship something to you, it's not properly packed, and then you have just this condition, everything is broken up. And it took me a year to fix this. This was really puzzling it all together, but eventually I made it, so it's now glued together, reinforced, fixed, except for the CRT tube, which is no longer, it's a TFT, but working again and can be used again. So, yeah, and then sometimes I wasn't there when, or I was around, but just too young when many of these systems, especially of the 70s or the very early 80s, were around. So I had to learn stuff that used to be commodity, common knowledge at that time. For me, sometimes things were new. I knew C64 tape drives. I had this myself. But it was new knowledge to learn that the IBM PC also supported a tape drive. And so I was really investigating, also taking here some measurements to see the audio wave when the data was transmitted into the system. And this was really like, for me, an aha effect about, so, this is how it's working. And after all, the reward is when it works again, even with many, many hours that I'm investing into this gear. So far, I almost everything brought back to life except one system of your godfather, huh? Or your wife's godfather. Not yet working, but I will fix that as well. And that's about it. I tried to speed up because there was already the shield up. There's a YouTube channel. Feel free to look at some of the restoration work and investigation work that I'm doing. And I would say, let's have some talks if you want. I'll be around for the social event. Thank you. So,
Thank
Pascal.
you very much, Gianpaolo.